Um, Tonight is the first time we're learning the appropriate daf in a number of weeks, which is Shabbos Memches, and as well we'll be beginning daf Memtes, and we'll get down to Mirza Hashem the Mishnah on the bottom of Memtes and Aleph, and then Motzei Shabbos we'll finish Memtes and be up to the end of Nun, and then on Sunday night we're starting one blot again, back to a regular routine. Baruch Hashem, the opportunity to start another parak. We're going to be learning the parak of Bamet Tomnin, and the Mishnah of Bamet Tomnin. The Mishnah is here, and this parak in general speaks about the Isser Derabanan of doing what we refer to as Hatmana. And Hatmana is insulating things. We've had a couple of references of this throughout the Masechta. And it's an Isser Derabanan to insulate things, either with something which is B'davar HaMosif Hevel before Shabbos, to insulate something before Shabbos in something that is Mosif Hevel, and on Shabbos, even with something which is B'davar She'ena Mosif Hevel, even with something that really doesn't have its own heat, but just that it kind of maintains the heat. So there as well, those are things that would be some of the Isurei Derabanan. So none of this is really discussing Dinei D'Oraisa as it relates to Bishul, provided, of course, that the food was already cooked, at least to Ma'achal ben Drusai. So these are some of the Isurei Derabanan, and this Mishnah opens with discussing just practical. Just think practical, like what types of materials are considered insulating types of materials. So that is the Mishnah that we have here on the bottom of Mem Zayin and Beis as we open the parak. Bamet Tomnin ubamet ein Tomnin. What are we allowed to insulate with, and what are we not allowed to insulate with? Critical Rashi, the first Rashi in the parak. Rashi says, what is the case that we're talking about here? When is this hatmana taking place? So it says Rashi, Dibur hamaschel bamet tomnin, haba l'salik kedera me'al gabe kira u'latona b'davar acher. A person wants to remove a pot from a fire, me'al gabe kira, from on top of an oven, u'latomna, and to insulate it b'davar acher, into some other type of material. Rashi continues, third line of Rashi, v'amru chachamim, ein tomnin b'davar hamosif hevel, ela b'davar hama'amid hevel. You're not allowed to take it off and put it into something which is itself a source of heat, but only something that insulates and maintains heat. Mihu hamosif v'aser. Which types of materials would be in the category of mosif hevel, and which types of materials would not be in the category of mosif hevel? So Rashi is giving us a very specific frame of when the question of our Mishnah applies. So let's answer the Mishnah's question: when, which ingredients, which materials are considered to be permissible to use, and which are not permissible to use? It says the Mishnah, Ein Tomnin, we are not allowed to do Hatmana. Namely, these things do reciprocate heat. Lo begefes, gefes, Rashi here points out, fifth, sixth line of Rashi, Psoles shel beis habad. These are some of the leftovers from the oil press. And the Rashi continues, Shel Shemet has oil, Shu kanus yachad v'cham me'od, it gets very hot. The Mishnah continues, V'lo bezevel, with manure, V'lo bemelach, with salt, V'lo beseed, which is lime, V'lo bechol, with sand. All of these things are problematic, and not only are they problematic, but it's bein lachen, bein yaveshin. Whether or not it is wet, it doesn't make a difference. The sand could be wet, the sand could be dry, we don't care. We treat these things as things that can be, things that are usher to be used for hatmana. And then the Mishnah kind of draws a line here and goes to other ingredients, and we'll see why the Mishnah drew a line here in a moment. Lo b'teben, you're not allowed to use straw. Lo b'zagin. What are zagin? Take a look at Rashi, Dibur hamaschel zagin, 6-7 lines from the bottom of the page. Psoles shel yekev yayin. It's the leftovers, the remnants of the grape making process. Lo b'mochin. Mochin is a high quality fabric which has something similar to felt. In fact, when we look later in Rashi at the word mochin, we'll see the word felt is used. Somewhere on the next amud, we'll find it when we get there. It's a nicer quality material, as we'll see, and also was an excellent at insulation, so it was therefore forbidden. Below be'asavin, different types of grass were not allowed. Bisman shehein lachen. That's only when they are wet. Aval tomnin bahen kshehin yaveshin. Here, the material functions differently. It insulates more poorly when it's dry. That's why the Mishnah drew a line before teven, before the straw case, because all of these latter cases are only prohibited when there is moisture, and they are not prohibited when they are dry. End of the Mishnah. The Gemara is going to ask about which form of gefes are we talking about. Now, as Rashi here pointed out in the Mishnah, gefes was speaking about the psoles of the Beis Habad, of the leftovers of the olive press. So, but that's not the only type of gefes, says the Gemara. The question was asked to the rabbis: Gefes shel zaysim tnan? Are we talking about the gefes, the leftovers of olives, like the Mishnah, like Rashi seemed to indicate? Aval, but maybe we would have argued that the gefes, the leftovers of the shumshimin shapir dami, but the leftovers of sesame, that would be permissible. O Dilma, or perhaps our Mishnah is speaking about the more lenient case of shumshimin, even that is usher, v'kol shekain de zaysim, and all the more so would it be true that zaysim would be prohibited. And if, built into this is a hierarchy that the zaysim hold more heat than the shumshimin, than the sesame. So let's see how the Gemara answers 4 lines from the bottom. Tashma de Amar Reb Zera mishumcha de be Rav Yanai. Rav Zera answered from one person from the base medrash of Rav Yanai, kupa shetaman ba aser lahanicha al gefes shel zaysim. We have a mefurish case from the world of Rav Yanai, quoted by Rav Zera, that when someone took off food from on top of the oven, they placed it on gefes shel zaysim, and that Shma mina shel zaysim tanan, because what does the Mishnah say there? What does the line above us say? That it's usher to put it on gefes shel zaysim, which means that seemingly that's what our Mishnah must have been talking about as well. And therefore, Shma mina shel zaysim tanan, our Mishnah must have been speaking about zaysim with an immediate implication that obviously the gefes of shumshimin, this lower type of heat maintenance tool, the derivatives of sesame, so that should be mutter to use. And then the Gemara says, wait a second, hold on. I don't agree to the distinction of olives, of gefes of zaysim versus gefes of shumshimin. I don't agree to the distinction, says the Gemara, as it relates to hatmana. Both of them are exactly the same, and we pass in that way. But rather, where do we see a difference between the two? Says the Gemara, turning to the top of Mem Ches Amud Aleph, le'inyan asuke hevla. There's a difference in regards to not insulating in the actual material itself, but rather in the steam that emanates from the material. So there's 2 cases. One is to take the pot of food and literally dip it into the leftovers of olives. So you're pressing down into this pot. You're pressing down your pot of hot food into a pot of olive, the dredge of olive, and it's just sitting there staying very hot. But that's not what the second part is. That we said the halacha is the same by gefes of shumshimin and gefes of zaysim. They're the same. Where are they different? Suke hevla, where your pot is not sitting in that food, but hovering above that food and benefiting from the steam of either the gefes of zaysim or the gefes of shumshimin. Says the Gemara, the zaysim maske hevla. The olives, when they are heated, they generate a tremendous amount of steam, and that would be problematic. However, the shumshimin lo maske hevla, but of the sesame derivatives, that's not really of concern. Of the sesame derivatives, it doesn't produce a lot of smoke, a lot of heat, and therefore it would be considered totally permissible. Sikum hadvarim, to summarize, when it comes to inserting a pot, behatmana, to insulate directly into either the gefes of zaysim or the gefes of shumshimin, the leftovers of either olives or sesame, if you're immersing a hot pot of food directly into those 2 foods, into those 2 derivatives of foods, that's going to be usher according to both shumshimin and zaysim. The only leniency is by shumshimin, when we're talking about the smoke and steam, because the smoke and steam of shumshimin is very minimal and not problematic. The Gemara here now, second line, Mem Ches Amud Aleph, is going to be telling a couple of stories that will give us a little bit of insight into some different halachic things that come up and to different realities of how people live their lives in the times of the Amoraim. Says the Gemara, Rabbi ve'Reb Zera ikleu lebei reish galusa. Rabbi and Reb Zera, fourth generation of Amoraim, so we're probably talking around the year 300, 320, somewhere around there. Ikleu lebei reish galusa. They went to the home of the Rav who was in charge. Chaziyuha lehahu abda. There was a servant who was in their house. The ana kuza de maya apuma de kumkama. And he took a pitcher of water, a little kuza, a little jug of water, and he placed it, apuma de kumkama, on the mouth of the kumkum, on top of the hot water. Just so that we have some clarity on what's actually happening here, thank you to Rashi. Take a look at Rashi on the 3rd line. Rashi dibur hamaskal apuma de kumkama, mecham shel chamin. The kumkama was a large container of hot water, behakuza, and the small container, haisamalea tsonein. So this gives a little bit more color to what we're talking about. We have a smaller cold vessel, a container of liquid that we're putting on top of a hot kumkum. And this was the Eved, this was the servant of the Reish Galusa. So immediately, Nizhaya Rabba rebuked him. So then Amar Le Reb Zera said to him, what's the big deal? Why is it a problem for him to put the kuza, to put the small container of water on top of the kumkum? Amar Le Reb Zera, Maishnami mecham al gabe mecham. Mecham al gabe mecham, as Rashi here points out, is a brisa later in the parak, which we're going to learn, which is if you have one container on top of another, that's permissible. And in fact, if you've ever seen the blechs in people's houses that are water blechs, they have, for example, what looks like a very large cookie sheet, covers your fire. You fill it with water, and then you cover that, and then you're allowed to take your food and put it on top. That's mecham al gabe mecham. That's the rationale for that is that it's just maintaining heat, but there's no hatmana, and it's mecham al gabe mecham. We're going to learn about that later in the parak. But Rav Zera was bothered by the Reish Galusa's response to his Eved. Why is this any worse than mecham al gabe mecham? It should be totally permissible to put the kuza demaya, to put this small container of water on top of the kumkum. So it says the Reish Galusa back to Reb Zera, Amar Le Hasam Okume Ka Mokim. There, in the case of Mecham al Gabe Mecham, all you're doing is maintaining heat. Nothing's going to cook, you're just maintaining heat. Hacha, but here in the case of the Kuza Demaya with the small container of cold water on top of a larger hot container of an urn, Hacha Olude Kamolid. Here you're creating something new, very interesting language. It almost sounds like Nolad, but it's not Nolad. Nolad is when you create a new entity. It's just a very, very strange language. I didn't see any of the Rishonim talk about it, but it just kind of piqued my interest a little bit. I wish I had more time to pick up on some of the research here, but this language is very unique. And the Reish Galusa was very concerned about what the Eved did. Fine. Next part of the story. Hadar Chazye, then everybody saw that the Eved did the following. The Paras Dastudar Apume de Kuba. He took a scarf of some kind and he put it Apume de Kuba. He put it on the opening of the kuba of the barrel. Va'anach natla iluya. And he put a small pitcher on top of it. This was a wine pitcher, Rashi here points out. Let's just see where that Rashi is. Rashi says Dastudar, Sudar Shel Rosh. It's like a head wrap scarf. I think the art scroll called it a turban, but it's something that you use to cover your head. The kuba, a kankan is a larger pitcher, and a nutla is like, people refer to a nutla as like a washing cup. It's a small cup, a kli sheshoav in yain min hakuba. It's a small cup that you draw water out of the larger kankan, out of the larger container, in order to bring out the wine. So that's what he did. He put the nutla, the little cup, the drawing cup, on top of a dastudar, on top of this head scarf that was on top of the barrel. And then ve'anach natla iluya. Again, Nizhaya Rabba rebuked him again. Amar Le Reb Zera, Amai, what is the problem? I don't understand. Amar Le, the Reish Galusa said, be patient. Hashta chazis, you will soon enough see exactly what the problem is. And then, of course, Lesov, in just a matter of time, what happened? So then Chazie de Kame Atzer Le. Everybody saw that the Eved started squeezing out. Rashi here points out the Me'atzer, Dibur Hamaschil de Ka'atzar. Rashi clearly had the Kame Atzer. Rashi did not have the Mem, but he, a different language. But anyways, Rashi says, Dibur Hamaschil de Ka'atzar, an inch and a half above where we are, Shahaya Sochto min Hamayim Shenivlu Ubo. It's actually supposed to say Yayin. The Hagos V'Tzionim corrects that, obviously, and according to the Rashash, because we're not talking about water, we're talking about wine. And he basically did schita, and you're not allowed to do schita. Schita zasser. So that's why the Reish Galusa was concerned. Amar Le, Reb Zera said back to the Reish Galusa, I don't understand. On every barrel of wine around all of Bavel, everyone does the same thing. You have some type of garment there that collects liquid as it drips off of the smaller pitcher. Amar Le, mai shnami prunka. What's the difference between this and the thing that everybody always uses? Okay, so he used a headscarf instead of the regular. Big deal. Who cares? It's the same garment. Why aren't we concerned about that? Amar Le, the Reish Galusa answers back to Rav Zera, Hasam lo kapidiluya. There with the prunka, the garment that's typically there, it's always going to be stained. It's always a disaster because it's always picking up droplets of wine. So that no one's makbid on that, and he's not going to do schita. However, the dastudar hacha with the headscarf that he's using, kapidiluya, here he is makbid because it wasn't the normal garment, and therefore, says the Reish Galusa, I am very concerned about it. About 1/3 of the way down at the 2 dots below B'Tevin, we pointed out in our Mishnah in the second category of things that are restricted when they are lach, but not when they're yavesh, and that starts with Tevin. Ba'amine Rav Ada bar Masna me Abaye. Rav Ada bar Masna asks a question to Abaye. Mochen shetaman bohen mahu letaltel b'Shabbos. What is the halacha if you have mochen? And here is where we're going to have that Rashi, where we see, if you look at Rashi, the Ramaskel mochen, just to the right, 1 inch up, Rashi says mochen. Einon ela la'asos mehen levadin. It's really only meant to make garments out of them, as shekorin falter, which is the same thing as felt. So it's smaller pieces of fabric that get pressed together however they make it, but it was much more expensive than the Tevin. We'll see shortly that was the case. So the Gemara's question was, if in fact you used mochen, this felt material that wasn't yet felt, but in its preparatory stages, and you used it for hatmana, mahu letaltel b'Shabbos, do they become muksa on Shabbos? Amar le, Abaye says back to him, why would you even assume that? Just because he doesn't have the less expensive version of insulation of the tevin, of the straw, just because he doesn't have that, omedu mafkir kupa shel mochen, all of a sudden he's gonna forego his much higher quality material of mochen. Why would you assume that? Nevertheless, it seems to be the assumption, because lema misayele, maybe we have a mari makom that supports this idea. Tomnin v'gizei tzemer, one is allowed to insulate in gizei tzemer. These are pieces of wool, v'tzipei tzemer, other pieces of wool, uvelashonos shel argamon, and clothing that is made out of argamon, uvemochin, ve'ein metaltelinosan, and mochin, the same material that we were just discussing in our Mishnah. And what do we see as the din in this supportive Mishnah? Ein metaltelinoso. So it does seem to be that the mochin become muksa. If a person insulates in a felt fabric, then it instantly becomes muksa when you're done insulating in it. Says the Gemara, no, that's not a good argument. I mishum ha lo iria. If that's what you're arguing, then that's not a good argument. Why? Because hachi kamar. Here's how I would give pshat in the Mishnah. Im lo taman bahen ein metaltalin. If you don't insulate with them, then that's when you should have muksa. It's only if you don't insulate with them, because there's no need for it. But when you have a need for it to do some insulation that parenthetically is mutter when the mochen are yavesh, we have to be careful here, because it does say in our Mishnah that mochen is problematic, but only when it's lach, only when it's moist. So here, of course, by definition, we're talking about a case where it's yavesh. It says the Gemara, it should be when you don't use it that it's muksa, not when you do use it. When you have a purpose, that's when something has a purpose. That's when you're allowed to use it. And the inference here is that if in fact one does hatmana, then it would not be metaltal. It says Gemara, ihachi, if that's true, then you've made a very good point. But then ma'ila memra, then what's the point of making these comments at all? It seems very clear. Answers the Gemara, mahu detema, one might have argued, chazi lemizga alayhu kamash malan. One, we've had this phrase before of mizga alayhu, which means to lean on it. One might have thought that maybe even if you weren't taman, even if you didn't do hatmana with the mochen, with this felt material, that maybe because it's comfortable or because it's convenient, if there was a lot of it, you could lean up against it and benefit from leaning on it. Maybe I would have thought that it's not muksa, even without having done hatmana, kamash malan, that it would in fact be muksa. And that brings us to the 2 dots, 2/3 of the way down on Memches Marala.
Isn't stocking like a pillow stuffing? So you use like a pillow, which you do recline on.
Well, actually, the next sugya is about stuffing a pillow, but this particular case was only speaking about the mochen in regards to that it's normally made into garments, as Rashi pointed out above in Dibur Hamaskil Mochen. He said that this was only made to make clothes. This was not yet the case that you're referencing, which is the case about pillows. That's the case literally right now. That this sentence that we're reading right now is about stuffing pillows. So we'll see that right now. But no, the mochen was not meant for stuffing. The mochen was only meant for making clothing. And the Gemara says, like you were just saying, Rabbi, he permitted the returning of udra, which are feathers, lebesadia bishabsa, into its encasement of the pillow on Shabbos. Totally permissible to take. You have a big pillow fight, all the feathers come out. You're allowed to put them back. So let's see if that's actually true. Asi there of Chanan bar Chizda le Rav Chizda. Seems like a father-son dialogue. So they were discussing, and Rav Chanan said, Matirin beis hatzavar b'Shabbos. It's permissible to open the neck of a garment on Shabbos. We're going to question that shortly. Avalo poschen. You can loosen it, but you can't tear it open. And you cannot take this felt material, lo letocha kar, v'lo letocha keses b'yom tov. And these mochin, which in this case, like you were saying, are being used for a pillow. So he says, einos nenes hamochin lo lesocha kar. You cannot put it in the pillow. Below lesocha keses, not into its container. B'yom tov, ein tzarich lomar b'Shabbos. So we seem to have a contradiction between Rav Chizda and Rav Chanan bar Chizda. Says the Gemara, lo kashya ha bechadati ha be'atiki. It depends. With new ones versus old ones. Which one is which one is lenient and which one is strict? Take a look at Rashi, Dibur hamaschil bechadati, 5 lines from the bottom. Rashi says, bechadati shelo hayu me'olam, the pillowcase never had feathers in it. So for you to add them in is a problem. Shelo hayu me'olam letocho, they're usher. Tahashta avi lemana, then you made it into a functional thing. It was never functional before, now you made it functional. So that's and that's where with the new ones, that's where we say that there's no leniency. That would be the shita of Rav Chanan. And the next one, Rashi continues, Ba'atiki lahachzirin lakar zeh shenaflim mimenu. You can return things that have fallen out from their own. Not that it's directly connected, but the concept is the same. I asked Rabbi Robinson this shaila a couple of maybe 6 months ago already. One of my shoelaces tore Shabbos morning, and it wasn't even enough to tie the shoe. I had an extra shoelace from an old pair of shoes that I wanted to swap out. So I did look it up, and this book behind me, the Rabbi book, and he says that as long as the shoelaces were there before, and you're not the one who's being makeh b'patish for that shoe, a shoe without the lace, nobody wears shoes without laces, presumably. So if you're the one who's adding the lace for the first time, you're making the shoe into a kli. So that's what Rabbi had said. I spoke to Rabbi Robinson, and he had learned the same way as Rabbi did, and that's in fact the din. Same thing is true here. You can only put the feathers back in the pillow if you're not creating a new kli. It had to have first been a pillow before you return the feathers to the pillow. So that's how the Gemara answers here the contradiction, the two conflicting sources between Rav Chizda, who was matir, and Rav Chanan bar Chizda, in that Rav Chizda allowed it because it was atiki. The pillow is already a pillow. You're just returning things you're returning feathers to the pillow or the mochin, whichever material. But Rav Chanan bar Chizda must have been talking about a case where it was a chadati, where it was new pillow, and therefore it was not allowed, because had you put it in, it would have made it into a functional kli. And here we have a brisa to support.
But you could replace the tie, the shoelace.
I was allowed to replace the shoelace because there was a shoelace in it before. Yeah, same svara as here. Tanya Nami Hachi, the brisa supports this this balanced answer of habechadati habe'atiki, that it's forbidden when it's new and it's not forbidden when it's old. Here's what the brisa says. So you're not allowed to put them back into the pillow. That's not allowed. However, nashro, if it fell out, and this is where you can see that it was already there. That's the atiki. That's the sheet of Rav Chizda. Nashru, if the feathers fell out, machzirun oso b'Shabbos, it can be put back. Ve'ein tzarich lomar b'Yom Tov, even more leniently, one would be allowed to do so on Yom Tov. Why is it more lenient on Yom Tov? You're not allowed to make new kelim on Yom Tov either. My brother-in-law Yosef Schwartz told me that the line that I just said might not be true. There's a big discussion in the poskim bichlal about opening cans on Shabbos. When I was in Smicha and YU, we learned this sugya carefully, and we concluded that my Rabbi concluded that we don't open cans on Shabbos. You're making a new kli. You're making something that wasn't before. There's also a separate din of nekev yafeh, but in this type of construct in the Gemara, ve'ein tzarich lomar b'Yom Tov, that it's more kal b'Yom Tov, that's not so simple. But my brother-in-law told me that opening cans on Shabbos may be less problematic on Yom Tov, because the creation of a kli on Yom Tov may be less of a problem than it would be on Shabbos. So maybe that's where this type of line is coming from. The Gemara continues 3 lines from the bottom on Memches Amar Aleph. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav haposeach beis hatzavar b'Shabbos chayiv chatos. Wow, a person who is opening up if you could imagine our tzitzis, right? We have a hole in the middle of our talis katan, of our tzitzis, but it's not, there's no hole yet, and you tear open the hole. So take a look at Rashi. Haposeach beis hatzavar, 2 lines from the bottom, shel chalak lechatchila. You're opening it for the first time. So if you do that, then you're chayiv chatos. That's tikkun mana. That's makeh b'patish. You just completed the garment. That's an isur d'oraisa, and you're chayiv korban in such a case. But says the Gemara, maski v'lo Rav Kahana, turning to the top of Memches Mebeis, Rav Kahana says, wait a minute, ma bein zeh lemegufas chavis. What's the difference between this and lopping off the top of a barrel? Take a look at Rashi. Rashi, top Rashi, Ma bein zel lemegufas chavis titanya beperik chavis shenishbara, as we'll see later in the Masechta. Maybe Adam chavis umatizas rosha b'saif umanicha lifnei archim. You can go get a new barrel of wine from the stock house, from the cellar. You could take a sword and you could literally just cut off the top. Why is that any different? Why can't I open a new? Why are you saying that it's chayv chatas to open a garment for the first time, but it's totally mutter to take a sword and cut off the top of a barrel to feed your guests? Ridiculous. Says the Gemara, Amar le Rava, ze chibur v'ze eino chibur. No, there's a lumdus here that ze chibur v'ze eino chibur, that the garment is one entity. It's chibur, it's mechubar, it's all connected. So by you breaking it open, that's going to be problematic. V'ze eino chibur, and these things are really multiple parts. You had to get the wine in there in the first place, which means that it must have been opened at some point, which means that it's not the same thing. You put on the top afterwards. It's not the same thing. Okay. That's how the Gemara answers. And from here, the Gemara is going to jump off the page to speak about chibur, about when two items are connected one to the next, when there are multiple pieces, when there are not multiple pieces. We're going to discuss that right now with a contradiction in two Tanaic sources, always indicated by the word Rami and Uraminhu. Rami le Rav Yirmiyah the Rav Zera. So there's two sources Rav Yirmiyah highlights that don't seem to match. Here's source number 1, line 3. Tanan. Shalal shel kovsin v'shal shelas v'shal maftechos v'habeget shehu tafor b'kiflaim. You have three types of very loose tetherings. A shalal shel kovsin, they used to put light strings, like one piece of thread to keep your two socks together so that they don't get lost in the laundry. V'shal shelas shel maftechos, and the chain that holds onto keys, not a chain in a strong way like we have, something that was breakable. V'habeged shehu tafor b'kilayim, and you have two garments that are kilayim tied together. So in all of those cases, chibur letuma ad sheyaschil lehatir, they are considered to be connected for tuma, in that if one of them becomes tameh, the other one becomes tameh, and that's true until they separate. Alma, what do we see from here? That shelo b'shas melacha name chibur, that even if you're not wearing the socks, even if you're not, whatever the case may be, all these three cases, whatever the case may be, we treat them as one entity as long as they are connected. That's source number 1. Let's see the conflicting source. Uriminhu, makel, you have a piece of wood, she'asa yad lekardom, and that piece of wood is what we then used as the handle for an axe. We just plugged it right into the head of the axe, and that's how they built the axe. So then here, this Mishnah, Tosefta, this is the Mishnah in Kalim. Here, this Mishnah says, Chibur letuma b'shas melacha. Here we say that yes, we do treat them as connected when you're using it as an axe. However, b'shas melacha in, b'shelo b'shas melacha lo. So here we have a contradiction in two Tanaic sources. The first one the first Mishnah implies that when you're not using it, the two socks are tethered together with a gentle string that the launderer put it there so you don't lose, the socks get lost in the dryer. That doesn't happen. Everything's sewn together with a light thread. Great. But here we're not saying that. Here we're saying that even that it's only going to be considered a chibur for tuma. It's only going to be connected b'shas malacha. So that's a machlokas. Do we say that shelo b'shas malacha, that it's connected? Yes or no? Machlokas in two mishnai. So answers the Gemara with a very clear response. Amar le, Rav Zera responds to Rav Yirmiyah's contradiction in Tanaic sources and says as follows: No, you're not correct. Hasam, by the case of the axe, where you took a piece of wood and you jammed it into the head of the axe to make the axe functional. Hasam shelo b'shas melacha, when you're not using the axe, adam asui lezarko levein ha'itzim, you don't necessarily leave the handle in the axe. You may choose to use that wood for, it's not like the axes we have today. The axes we have today are jammed in there, hopefully tightly enough that they don't fall off when you're, that's v'nashal har barzel mina eitz. That's my bar mitzvah parsha shoftim. What happens when the head of the axe flies off? So hopefully they don't fly off. But what the Gemara assumes here is that, okay, right now the piece of wood is being used as a handle for the axe, but shelo b'shas melacha, when I'm not using the axe, the wood is not in the handle. Hacha, but here in regards to the clothing, so even shelo b'shas melacha, even when I'm not wearing the socks, maybe especially when I'm not wearing the socks, nami nichale, it's still better for me to have both socks connected to one another. The imitnefu, that if it gets dirty, hadar mechaber lu, I can go back and make it white again. Mechaber chivrasa in Aramaic is white, and I can go clean them again. So the Gemara makes a distinction. We asked a question from the case of laundry with a light thread connecting two garments, where we said that even when it's not shas malacha, it's still chibur l'tuma. Masha'ein kain, we asked that by an axe, that when the handle is in, when the axe is being used, then it's considered a chibur l'tuma. But when it's not, so then it's not. Then we don't treat it that way. And the Gemara answers that just practical. That we want the socks to stay connected when they're in our drawer, and we don't really care if the handle of the axe is in the axe when I'm not using it. And that's how the Gemara answers the contradiction of Rabbi Yirmiyah. Says the Gemara, this surah, yeah, that's where we are, 1/3 of the way down. This surah, masnu la lahash maisa mishmei Rav Chizda. In surah, this sugya that we just learned in the name of Rav Yirmiyah was taught in the name of Rav Chizda. Pumpadisa masnu mishmei Rav Kahana va'amri la mishmei Rabba. Different possible sources as to where this whole conversation came from. Continuing our discussion of mechubar, but in a different vein, the Gemara asks as follows: Man Tana ha milsa da'amur Rabbanan. Who is the one who authored the following idea? Kol mechubar lo harehu kamohu. The two things that are connected to one another, we treat them as one. Who is the author of that? The answer is the Gemara. Amar Rav Yehuda Marav Rav Meir. This is the shita of Rav Meir. Ditnan. We have a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Beis hapach u beis hatavlin u beis haner shebekira mitamin b'maga ve'ein mitamin be'avir divrei Rav Meir. Rashi highlights this. I don't want to go too late, but Rashi highlights this idea that if you have these three vessels, which were in fact attached to a kira, they were attached to an oven. The first one is a beis hapach, which Rashi points out that it held some oil. Beis hatavlin, it held spices. Beis haner, it was a place to keep a candle. These things were part of the kira; they were part of the oven. So the halacha is that these three containers, they were subject to tumas maga, but they were not subject to tumas avir. That was the shita of Rav Meir, and that's what the Gemara says here, was that these things are connected. That's perfect. We said, who is the one who said that two things that are connected are one? We said it's Rav Meir. How so? Because Rav Meir holds that these three smaller utensils that were connected to the larger kira would become tamei tumas maga if the oven became tamei tumas maga. Perfect. We have our answer. However, Rav Meir does not say that there's tumas avir. We'll get back to that momentarily. The Reb Shimon mitaher. Reb Shimon was the dissenting opinion. He did not agree. He said that these three small utensils that are connected to the oven, even though they're mechubar, they don't become tamei when the oven becomes tamei. So then the Gemara develops its question, or develops its point. Bishlam ala Reb Shimon kasavar lav kikira damo. I understand the shita of Reb Shimon. It's pretty simple. It's just nothing becomes tamei, so there's no question to really ask. However, Ela Rav Meir did something funny in his shita. Rav Meir said that even though these three utensils are connected to the larger kira, it only becomes tamei b'tumas maga, and it doesn't become tamei b'tumas avir. So it says the Gemara as follows: Ela Rav Meir ikikira damo. If in fact these three utensils are like the oven, then afilu ba'avir nami litmo. Then these three utensils should become tamei b'tumas avir, just like the kira would become tamei b'tumas avir. Why did you distinguish between tumas maga and tumas avir? It doesn't make any sense. If these three things are mechubar and they are like the kira, they should have the same tumas status as the kira, which is that they not only become tamei b'maga, but they also become tamei b'avir. Why did you say that there's no tumas avir if they're all connected? And continues to punch from the other side, ilav kikira, if you Rav Meir hold that these three attached utensils are not like the kira itself, then I don't understand where the tumas maga comes from. No matter how you understand your shita, something doesn't fit. Afilu b'maga nami lo litmu. It doesn't make any sense. Your shita is very difficult to understand, Rav Meir. Says the Gemara, le'olam lav kikira. Really, Rav Meir holds that it's not like a kira. Really, they're not really mechubar. However, there was a chumrah by tumas maga. What was the chumrah? The Rabbanan who de gazro bahu, they added in a gzera. Gazro bahu, if they made a gzera, why didn't they make the gzera full? This is Tumah V'Tara. If you're concerned about tumas maga, shouldn't you also be concerned about tumas avir? So I understand. You, Rav Meir, really deep down you hold that these three utensils, the beis hapach, these things that are attached to the oven, they're lav kikira. They're really not like the oven. They're really not mechubar. So then fine. That's your shita. Then the Rabbanan come and they say, wait, we have to add an Isser D'Rabbanan. We're going to add an Isser D'Rabbanan that there's tumas maga, by these three things that are attached to the oven, but not tumas avir. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. So then why doesn't their gzera extend from tumas maga to tumas avir? And the Gemara gives a geschmack answer. Says the Gemara, no. The reason why we kept a distinction, why we did not make it perfectly tameh, is because someone might have made a mistake in the following way. Let's say there was food in the oven, and let's say that it became tameh, and let's say that the chachamim really made an all-out gezerah, not only on tumas maga, but also on tumas avir. So someone might have thought that if the tuma is both by tumas maga and by tumas avir, that maybe that tuma is d'oraisa, and maybe the truma that's being cooked in there is now tameh mid'oraisa, and now it needs to be nisraf. Says the chachamim, no, that's why we did not make a gzera by tumas avir as it relates to these three attached kelim. We're only going to do a partial gzera derabanan, and we don't want to do the kira. The absence of this is the chaf. The absence of the gzera by tumas avir in this case is exactly what highlights to us that it is not a din deoraisa. Otherwise, it easily could have been confused. Brilliant answer, very spot on, makes perfect sense. The Chachamim, obviously, they don't need our stempel. They were very thought out, and they extended the din derabanan as far as was reasonable, so as to ensure that we would never be soref kachem accidentally, that we would never burn holy food unless it was in fact tamimi deoraisa. 3/4 of the way down, 10 lines from the bottom. Tana Rabbanan, Maspores shel prakim. These are scissors that come apart. We've probably seen scissors like this before, that they unhinge. Sometimes cooking scissors in the kitchen come this way, so you can get them much cleaner in the dishwasher or in the sink. So Maspores shel prakim, they have two parts. The izemel shel rahitne. This the Meforshim explain. Just a fascinating Rashi to read to see how he explained this. As you can see there, he calls it a plina. It's actually a planer. It's a wood planer. Take a look at Rashi. We're 4 lines from the bottom. Shememachakin ba es hatrisin. It wears down the trisin, the wood. The nosnin habarza latoch tefus shel eight. You put on a sharp piece of metal into the end of a piece of wood. Hamesukan lo, that fits there. Ula'achar malachto no tel hemenu. So, but it was inserted in and out, right? So I know that there are some challah board makers here on the call. My father is quite the bucky. You have I presume an electric planer at home, but the ones that they used back in the day were 2-piece planers. They had one thing that was kind of the handle, I guess, and they had the sharper piece to drag over the actual wood to plane it down a little bit. I'm sure not as efficient or as smooth. I know Hirsch is also dabbling a little bit to get a little challah board out of the deal. So that's what we're talking about here. It's a 2-piece tool. The first example was scissors that's made in 2 pieces. The second was this planer, which was made in 2 pieces as well. So that's what we're talking about. You can already see we're still talking, of course, about mechubar. Says the Gemara, this is really strange. Chibur the tuma. We treat them as connected as it relates to tuma. So if one blade, in fact, becomes tameh, the other blade becomes tameh. If one part of the planer becomes tameh, the other part becomes tameh. However, in sharp contrast, the ein chibur lehaza'a. Wow. However, when it comes to being mitaher those things, there they cannot be mitaher. If you only are mitaher one side of the scissors, one blade, the other one will not become tahor. If you're only mitaher one part of the planing machine and not the other, then there too it will not become tahor. The Gemara is obviously bothered by this distinction. Why would you say that these 2 pieces are the same for tuma, but not for the removal of tuma? It's a total contradiction in terms. You have to pick one. It says Gemara Manavshach. I don't understand what you're talking about. If it's connected enough that it becomes tameh, then the solution to the tumah when you're mazeh mayim on it to make it tahor, it should work. Like whatever the mechatas, however you're being matahor this, and ilav chiborhu. And if you're saying that it's not connected as it relates to hazah, then afilu l'tumanami lo. No matter what, this mission is difficult to understand. Because it seems like you're straddling the fence. You got one foot in each camp. You're saying that it's one unit enough to become tameh, but it's not one unit enough to be matahiret like one. Doesn't make any sense. Says the Gemara as follows: Amar Rava Davar Torah, Rava Paskins. B'shas melacha, when you're using the item, so you're cutting or you're planing, chibur bein latuma bein lahazah. You're right. Your initial understanding of the Mishnah was completely incorrect, and really you're right. When you're doing this malacha, let's say you're cutting hair, you're planing a challah board, and then a sheretz, one of the 8 shratzim, one of the shmona shratzim touches one part of the plane, the whole thing becomes tameh. Done. That's for sure. And it's true for Hazah too, that if that's how it became Tameh, then that's how you solve that problem as well. Vishelo b'shas melacha, and when one is not using them, it's just sitting in the garage all by itself, all by its lonesome, or a pair of scissors in the kitchen, and one of the Shmona Shratzim touches just one of the blades. Eino chibor, lo l'tuma v'lo l'hazah. Nothing. So here we're perfectly even. Now we understand this very well. And each extreme, when we're using it, then one blade can impact the other. When we're not using it, one blade cannot impact the other. However, turning to the top of Mem Tes Amud Aleph, the Gazu Rabbanon, the rabbis made a decree, and that's what this Mishnah was reflecting. The Gazu Rabbanon, al tuma shelo b'shas melacha, mishum tuma b'shas melacha. They made a gzera that because when something is not used, we're afraid that you may make a mistake. So they made a gzera derabanan of tuma when the item is not being used, and we carried that over to a tuma b'shas malacha, and as well the al hazah sheb'shas malacha mishum hazah shelo b'shas malacha. So this is what the Gemara is. It's all dinei derabanan. It's not dinei deoraisa. Mi deoraisa, crystal clear. We know exactly what's going on when you're using it. So then there is chibor. When you're not using it, there is no chibor. And that in each of those worlds of shas malacha, not shas malacha, applies both to chibor and to hazah. Bisman shehin lachin, we pointed out in our Mishnah that the second category of items that were eligible for violating the Isra of Hatmana were only problematic when they were lach, when there was moisture. So it says the Gemara 5 lines from the top on Daf Mem Tes Amud Aleph, 4 lines, excuse me. Ibayaluhu lachin machmas atzman, o dilma lachman machmas davar acher. Where does the liquid have to come from? Okay, what's the difference? Who cares where the liquid comes from? If it's wet, then it's going to insulate better. If it's dry, it's not. But the Gemara is bothered by this. We do care where the moisture comes from. Says the Gemara, Tashma, let's see. Did I finish reading this? Oh, yes, I did. Tashma answers the Gemara. Look back at our Mishnah. Lo b'teven, v'lo b'zagim, v'lo b'mochen, v'lo b'asabim, b'zman shein lach. And that was a quote from our Mishnah. So says the Gemara, analyzing our Mishnah. I amris bishlama lachin machmas davar acher shapir. If you want to argue that the moisture is coming from an external source, that makes perfect sense because mochen is dry material. Straw is dry material. Zagin, at least it comes from grapes. But the other two things come from dry material. What material are we talking about? The mochen is made from fibers from an animal. What does that mean? It's detached now. What are we worried about? It says the Gemara, maybe you just detached it, but let's see in a moment. If you want to argue that it's only problematic when the moisture of these particular materials comes from itself, moisture from within those items, where do we find that felt could be moist on its own? That's not a thing. It doesn't ooze, it doesn't sweat. So it says the Gemara, it doesn't sweat, but when it was attached to the animal, it may well have done that. Says the Gemara, mimirta de bene itme. When there is mirta in Aramaic is a wool of some kind. It's like a growth on an animal. De bene itme in the makom that is atum, in the places that are hidden, like the armpits, for example. Take a look at Rashi, the first of the shortest lines. Dibur hamaschel mimarta de bene itme. Mitzemer hanimrat mi bein yarkoseh, from between its arms and between its legs. Shal behema shehu malezeh behu lachme atzmo. That's what it is talking about there. So that it is possible. So that seems to be the Gemara's answer, is that it's only talking about me'atzman. It's only talking about liquid that comes from within the material that we're talking about. What does that imply? That implies quite strongly that I can use these materials and just pour water on them from the outside, because seemingly the only limitation will be liquids of those materials from within, not from external materials. A person can do hatmana with dry clothing, with dried fruit. But one is not allowed to use clothing that is wet or moist. Says the Gemara, the same question we asked by the mochen. Says the Gemara, what does that mean? Clothing that oozes liquid? That's not the way clothes work. They don't have internal liquid. Unless they're coming out of the washing machine, they don't have anything on them. Says the Gemara, same answer as before me. Mirta de beni itme. It's the same answer that we're talking about clothing that was made from an animal. It maintained its moisture, and therefore it's still moist. And that is what we are talking about. Again, just a repetitive story to indicate to us that, in fact, if you look back in our Mishnah, these things that were limiting the tevin and the zagin, the straw and the derivatives of the grapes and the mochin and the asavim, all of these are considered problematic if they are moist, but only, here's the Gemara's qualification that we just learned, but only if it is moisture of its own. One more Mishnah for tonight, another half an amud, and then we'll wrap up. Trying to keep to the 50-minute mark in general with blot and a half. So let's finish up. The Mishnah says, Tomnin biksus ube peros. We just saw this. The kanfe yona with the feathers of a dove. Uvinisoras shel charashim with small wood chips or sawdust of charashim, people who do woodwork. Uvina ores shel pishtan with strips of flax that are daka, that are thin. Yehuda oser bedaka umatir begasa. Yehuda allows thin ones and allows. He doesn't. He's oser bedaka. He doesn't allow the thin ones, but he is matir begasa. Now, just reading this Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda definitely seems like he's talking about the case of pishtan, because pishtan referred to the pishtan as daka, and then Rabbi Yehuda says no, the daka is aser and the gas is mutter. The Gemara is going to question this shortly and reject its havamina. But let's get started with the Gemara. Amar Rav Yanai, seemingly out of left field, but you can see a verbal connection. Amar Rav Yanai, tefillin tzrichin guf naki ke'alisha bal kanafayim. Tefillin need to have a guf naki. This is why we don't really have chinuch with children when it comes to tefillin. We have a lot of chinuch with children. We make our kids be makbid at a certain age for all halachos. They wear tzitzis once they're old enough to be able to be potty trained, basically. We make our kids do a lot of mitzvos, I say. They hold a lulav and esrog. They do a lot of things. Not by tefillin. By tefillin, we're very makbid. There's different minhagim. Usually, a lot of people, what we did with our kids is 30 halachic days prior to their bo bayom, to the day that they actually became a bar chiyuva, the day they actually came a bar mitzvah. Fine. So, but there's a unique din that's called guf naki, that a person has to have a clean body when they wear tefillin. And it has to be ke'alisha bal kinafayim. Of course, our Mishnah speaks about kanfeyona. That's why the Gemara brings this here, and we'll get into this shortly. Maihi. How do we define guf naki as it relates to tefillin? Abai Amar shelo yafiach behem, that a person should not pass gas if they have their tefillin on. Rava Amar shelo yishan behem, that a person should not fall asleep on them. The first one is a question of guf naki mamish. The second one is potentially a question of one of two things. Is it that when he's yashan, when a person's sleeping, then they may pass gas, which is the guf naki issue? Or no, we're saying that if he's yashan, he has hesach hadas. So there's a certain chakira to be made here. Why was Elisha referred to as a bal kinafayim? A famous story. Middle of the page. Shepamachas gazra malchus rome harisha. The Romans, Yamach Shemam, they made a gzera al Yisrael shekol maniach tefillin yinakru es mocho, that anyone who would put on tefillin, they were yinakru es mocho. Take a look at Rashi, about 4 inches above where we are. Rashi yinakru es mocho shehu tachas tefillin, the space under your eyes, namely yinakru lashon nikur einayim, about removing a person's eyes. Rachmana litzlan. That was the consequence for wearing tefillin in the times of Elisha. So he was not about to back down. He's obviously a remarkable person who needs no compliments, but remarkable as he was. By Elisha manicham v'yotze b'shuk. He didn't care. He walked around with his tefillin on. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to protect him. Ra'ahu kastor. Here we see the word minister is an old word. Rashi here, Dibur Hamaschil, kastor writes, kastor ministral, some type of minister. Shahaya Memuna al Kach, his job was to be the tefillin cop, and he was supposed to stop everyone. So Ra'ahu Kazdor Echad, Ratzmi Panav, Elisha started running, V'ratz Acharav, and the cop started chasing him. The Kevan Shehigia Etzlo, by the time the cop caught up with him, Natalan Me Rosho, he had taken off his shell rosh, the Achzan Biyado, he was just holding his tefillin in his hands. Omar Lo, he said to him, Maze Biyadcha, show me what you have in your hands, empty your pockets. Amarlo kanfeyona, it's a dove, it's a bird. So he says pashat, it's yadav and imtu kanfeyona, and he found the bird in his hand. He found the feathers of the bird in his hand. So therefore, lefikach koronoso Elisha bal kanafayim. Why this bird? Umayshna kanfeyona mishar ofos. You could have picked a pigeon. You could have picked 100 birds. Why did you pick this one? Says the Gemara, de imtil. When you read this word, just remember that in Aramaic and Hebrew, tuf and shin are interchangeable. The imshil, from the word mashal, the imtil, Knesset Yisrael Yona. The Jewish people are compared to a Yona. Why are they compared to a Yonah? Shene'emar, as the pasuk says, Kanfe Yonah nechpa bakesef. The Kanfe Yonah, the wings of a Yonah are covered in silver. What does this mean? Says the Gemara as follows: Ma Yonah kenafeha maginos aleha. Just like the Yonah, its wings protected. Take a look at Rashi. Rashi says kenafeha maginos aleha. The last, it's right in the middle of the page of Rashi's, and right before the Mishnah, Rashi says. The second line, the second Rashi before the Mishnah, Kanafeh magino saleha min hatzina, from the cold, it covers itself. All birds do that. Umin ha'of uve adam haba aleha, and it also has a defensive mechanism in that it will poke people with its wings. Hinil chemes umaka barosh. He'll smack you in the head. So that's why this bird was unique and why he was referred to as the Baal Kanafayim. And what was the message that we were learning from Elisha? That your tefillin are going to protect you, just like the dove protects you. Mitzvos are going to protect you. Af Yisrael, mitzvos maginos aleha. So too, mitzvos protect a person. And the Gemara finishes up with just one more minor sugya, and then this will bring us to the next Mishnah for Motzei Shabbos. B'nesoros shel charoshin, we learned in the Mishnah that one of the materials that was discussed was shards and shavings of wood. And the question is as follows: the question was Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah, as I highlighted before, who said no oser b'daka matir b'gasa. So he said he was arguing against the Tanna Kama. So says the Gemara, what was Rabbi Yehuda arguing on? On the sores shel charoshin kai? Was he arguing on the sheet and the Tanna Kama about the shavings of the wood? Oh, on the oris shel pishtan koi, or was he arguing about the strands of flax that comes from the tree? Toshma, let's see. We have a brisa. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer, the oris shel pishtan daka, hare he kizevel. If it's thin, then it's like zevel, which was in the first part of our Mishnah and therefore prohibited. And that's exactly what we see in our Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda Oser B'daka. So that fits perfectly. Shma Mina on the Orish Shel Pishtan Kai that Rabbi Yehuda was clearly referring in our Mishnah, arguing on the immediately previous case that was referenced, which was the Pishtan, Shma Mina. And that brings us to the end tonight. So we should all have a beautiful Shabbos, and we'll pick up again Motzei Shabbos at 9:30 with a blot and a half. Have a wonderful, wonderful night.